more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show with Dave Manouk, with Ezra Ginsburg. I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, getting you set for this afternoon's matinee contest between the Jets and the Dallas Stars. Absolutely, we will also touch on the Bombers and the BC Lions at some point during this podcast show. It is a very busy Super Sports Saturday here with Illegal Curve. Gentlemen, good to see you. It is Remembrance Day, so of course we pay remembrance to all those who have fought for the betterment of our country. We salute them. We thank them for their service, past, present, and continuing. Of course, Ezzy is missing the poppy, but that is because not for a lack of trying. We will give him we'll cut him some slack on this one, but we know that you certainly put forth the effort to get that poppy on there, Mr. Ginsburg.
I actually do have a poppy. I'm not just wearing it. It's upstairs on my jacket, so I apologize for not wearing it, but I echo what you said. It's a very important day. I think all of our grandparents most likely served for Canada in the Second World War, right? So it's very important to wear the poppy. So again, I apologize, but we've got the top covered with Dave M and Drew, so we're good.
Yes, exactly right. And, you know, that it is important to wear the poppy. It is important to remember those who have fought for the freedom that we get to experience each and every day. So we thank everyone for their service, of course. And I'm sure there'll be some remembrances and some ceremonials throughout the different sporting events happening in Winnipeg today. Of course, downtown Winnipeg is going to be the site of the Jets and the Stars, a Central Division matchup, a Central Division clash between two of the three top teams in the Central Division, and then later this evening, the Bombers and the BC Lions on the campus of the University of Manitoba. So a very busy day, but keep it locked to Illegal Curve all day long for your latest coverage on the Jets and, of course, the Manitoba Moose as well. Mr. Manouk, nice to see you on this Remembrance Day Saturday.
Thank you, Drew. And Ezzy, nice intro, Drew. I'm not going to add anything much because I think that was a good one. But yeah, you're right. We have to we have to honor those who allow us to do what we do with freedom. So we thank everyone who has served and who's currently serving, and those who will serve in the future. So thanks to everyone who does that, who makes Canada the best place to live in the world. And we have to
agree with that.
We have to remember that. So, we're wearing the poppies as a way to pay a little bit of tribute to those in need, but of course, or those who serve, and something that, even though we do this for Remembrance Day, it's something that we should be thinking about constantly, not just between the end of October and November 11th. But, it's been a busy week, of course, in Jets land, and Jets are back in town, and the Moose are in town. So, of course, the Jets sent Dominic Toninato back. They're running a little lean right now up top at the big club because they sent Toninato down. So they've got 12 forwards up with the Jets, and of course the 2 extra D in Logan Stanley and Declan Chisholm. But it's been an interesting week. We heard yesterday was an emotional day in Jets land. If you didn't get a chance to see it, we've got that on our YouTube channel. Neil Pionk and Alex Iafallo both spoke following practice, I should say, and they spoke about Adam Johnson, their good friend, emotionally at times, about how much he meant to them and the hockey communities surrounded him, and also the what the organization has done for them and what it meant, chartering the plane. Like Neil Pionk put it in real terms, and he said the difference was, had we not had the blessing, or we may have had the blessing, but not the backing, I should say, of the organization, what ends up happening is they get 8 to 10 hours in Hibbing, Minnesota with their friends and family, most likely just for the funeral, not necessarily the celebration of life. But instead, because the organization chartered them a plane, they ended up getting there, and according to Neil Pionk, spending over 24 hours with Adam Johnson's family, their own family. And we saw it, like Gene Toninato was talking about how important it's Dominic's mother, who was talking about how important it was for the families to have their kids with them and stuff like that. So I think it was a a feather in the cap of the organization about how they support their players. Scott O'Neill spoke
Yep.
about it, the associate coach, of course, here in
Well, it
Winnipeg.
shows you that, what's the most important in life, right? It's not hockey. That's not the most important thing in life, right? And
Yeah.
you can tell that, especially the Minnesota guys, this has galvanized them. Obviously, it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
But it's brought them all together. And you're right, Dave. I listened to Neil Pionk and Alex Iafallo, and you can tell, they thanked Mark Chipman personally. So that really was a classy gesture, and it's a tragedy. And that those guys are going to be playing for Adam Johnson, not just for the rest of this year, but for the rest of their careers, right? Because Dominic Toninato was also very close. Like we've talked about Neil Pionk and Alex Iafallo playing with him for the University of Minnesota Duluth. So I echo what you said. They really appreciate that. So good on the Jets organization for doing that.
And good on the players for speaking. I mean, it wouldn't have been easy for them to speak, and they certainly took their time as they should, and before they were able to find the words and everything else. But you're right, Dave. It was an emotional day yesterday. The practice yesterday about 1 o'clock, I think practice was, or give or take, maybe 12 noon or so.
It was
downtown.
12. It was Drew. It was 12. I just happened to be late because I was coming from Hockey for All Center.
Fair enough.
1 o'clock somewhere, Drew.
Yeah, we'll cut Dave some slack there. But they get back onto the ice, and it's not an important game, but it's a good game today. It's a good sort of proverbial measuring stick game today against the Dallas Stars. The Jets are 1 point behind the Dallas Stars. Way too early to be looking at the standings, but with a not even a win today as much, but with continued good performances that we've seen from this team, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, where they're racking up these points, they will continue to separate from the rest of the Central Division. And I think that is significant. You look, the Jets, the Avalanche, and the Stars right now are getting close enough where they're getting some breathing room between the other teams, the bottom teams in the Central Division, the teams that are sort of scuffling, the Blues, the Coyotes, who I wouldn't describe necessarily as scuffling, but they're playing some better hockey than you'd expect. Minnesota Wild, they're definitely a team that's scuffling. So and of course we know that the other shoe can just as easily drop, because we saw it happen last year, but it just continues to stress the importance of banking these points, like the Jets are doing, like the Vancouver Canucks are doing in the Pacific Division.
Didn't think you'd necessarily be saying that this early in the season, right, Drew? Like, I mean, for all the talk of how poorly the Oilers have played, the Canucks have probably been the biggest surprise in the league so far, I would say.
Well, the Canucks are playing tremendous hockey, and it's they're 10-2-1, and they're not going to stay at that 800 points percentage. And I don't think you need to be a mathematician to know that. But for the Canucks,
just talk about the PDO, Drew. Just talk about the PDO.
Well, I mean, I talked about the PDO on the post game show, but for the
talk
Canucks,
about the PDO, we'll talk about the PDO.
For the Canucks, the Jets, other teams like that, look, points in the standings are points in the standings. They don't ever take your points away. So
They're
I think
stealing Dave's shtick right now, Drew. This is Dave's shtick when he talks about banking the points.
Well, I mean, it's a good shtick. Sometimes you got to steal from the best. But for the Jets today, this is just. I mean, I think you just want to continue to play the way you've been playing, and you're likely going to get some decent results. You look at the Dallas Stars, entering today's game, a very, also a good possession team, also a team that has a good, expected goals for. The Stars are fourth in the league in expected goals for. The Jets shortly behind them at seventh. You look at both teams' Corsi percentage. The Jets are fourth, in Corsi. Dallas a little bit further down at 11th. But these are, so far this year at least, Dave, these are two, upper echelon NHL teams. Now, I don't know that that's going to last, and I don't know that it's necessarily going to be what I say at game 82.
It's going to last.
But so far, these are two teams that by all the metrics seem like they're in the upper half of the NHL.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only thing with Dallas that I find funny / curious is that their PK is the best PK in the NHL, I think at 92%, and their power play is 29th, I think, or 30th in the NHL at, I think it's bad. It's like 9.1% or something like that. Maybe 29th or 30th, whatever. It's amongst the bottom.
29, so 9.1%, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I'm just saying, it's very, very, very interesting how they've got that sort of disparity, because, Scott O'Neill was asked about that, and he said usually around this time of the year, the power plays are running hot and the PKs are working, but I mean, or sorry, the power plays are running hot, not the PK, and yet for them it's the inverse. But regardless, Dallas has been a very good team, and they're he was asked about the top line. He goes, well, look, you can't forget about the Rupe Hintz line. You can't forget about what Wyatt Johnston's doing. So they've got a lot of talent in Dallas, and this is going to be a good clash. It's going to be a really good test for both clubs. And Winnipeg's feeling very good about their game, rightly so, because as we've talked about, as we've outlined throughout the last week, I mean, this was a good 5-on-5 team. It was a good getting better special teams team, and especially now in the last few games. And now it's just a function of, will they get the goaltending? And if they can get the goaltending with those other two things, especially because the 5-on-5 play really from the outset, since that Calgary game, I mean, Mason Appleton talked about it in his conversation with Murat. He basically said, there's only so many periods that we don't like throughout this season. It's not like they're saying there's entire stretches. There are only a few periods. And you can understand that, right? As the game against LA, there's a period against Vegas. So there are instances where they could say, okay, well, we don't like that. But from that game against Calgary, which they felt like they should have at least gotten a point out or won on game 1 to game 13, this Jets team has felt good about the way they've played 5-on-5. They've cleaned up their special teams. They're firing now in both instances, and they've started to pick up into I think they're in the late teens, 17th or something like that. The PK might still be 24th, but the point is
PK. So the power play is 18th at 18.4%, and like you said, the PK is down. It's still improving, but it's at 24th in the league.
But it was 30th.
Points. Yeah. Oh no,
it was 30th. So so I'm just saying. So they've improved, and again, it's going to take a while because when you're that bad, you have you have to take a little bit of time to get it back up there. But you can see both are rising, right? So if they can just get Connor Hellebuck and Lauren Brossoit.
Sure, the penalty kill was 100% last game versus Nashville, right? So I mean, the penalty kill, I think we've talked about it. We weren't as worried about the power play as opposed to the penalty kill, which was so excellent last year, and that's starting to come around. As you mentioned, it's probably going to keep climbing. And I think too, guys, I mean, if you look at just ice time in the forward groups, we've talked a lot about the forward depth. That's what I'm going to be focusing on in this game versus Dallas, right? Like I think we would all agree Ehlers, Perfetti, and Nemestikov have played well together, but the results, at times haven't been there. So really, I mean, the Lowry line has been the Jets' second line in terms of usage, but the top line and the fourth line have been equally as good. Like we've talked about it, like David Gustafson's already got a couple goals. Rasmus Kupari has been solid all year long. We know how fast he is and how skilled he is. He's been great there. Morgan Barron, he's a guy that, played on the third line for the majority of last season. He's a guy that could easily get bumped up to the third line, but with how well Lowry, Appleton, and Niederreiter are playing, that's not going to happen. So I'm really interested to see, how that second line does, because I think, you would say that, that line maybe is underperforming a little bit, whereas you can't say that about the other three forward lines. So like Dave said, right? Like if Hellebuck, if we see more A+ performances from Hellebuck and obviously to a lesser extent Brossoit, I mean, this team is going to be a top team in the Central, a top team, in the West. And we don't want to get too excited here, 13 games in, but you have to like what you've seen. And like if the Jets beat the Stars tonight, guys, we're not going to give them the Stanley Cup. But I mean, it's definitely a good measuring stick, because I mentioned this in the summer. I mean, that's the thing. Dallas has kind of been like a criminally underrated team, in my opinion, over the years. Like, look, Jake Ottinger is at the very least, a top 10 goalie in the league, if not a top 5 or 6 goalie in the league.
Yeah, and
then you throw in Matt Duchene, right? And like I said this to you guys, like Matt Duchene for 1 year, I think it was $3 million. This is a guy who a couple of years ago had 80 points. So you're adding a Duchene into a group that already has Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, Joe Pavelski, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn. Like this Stars team is legit. And again, I still think the Avalanche are the best team in the Central and arguably the West. But this Dallas team is very good. And I believe Radek Faksa is still out. He's a staple of the bottom 6, but Matt Duchene is back. I think he had 4 points the other night.
Well, you look at Dallas, and you mentioned Dallas there, as in you look at their forward depth. I mean, their forward depth is, we talk about the Jets' forward depth, a lot, and we've talked about it all offseason and how that's improved. Dallas's forward depth is very impressive. I mean, 1 through 12 when it comes to their forward depth, they have bona fide NHLers, and they probably have some bona fide NHLers playing even lower in their lineup than they would on a lot of other teams. I mean, it's a very impressive Dallas Stars team. That's why I'm excited for today's game. I mean, there's only so many games on the schedule that you can sort of feel that there's that there's maybe an extra level of excitement towards. This is one of them, at least early on in the year, where these are two teams. They're they're both in the Central Division. They are ostensibly rivals, Dave, and there's a lot of, I would say, similarities between the two teams.
Yep.
Dallas with their forward depth, the great goaltending. I mean, Jake Ottinger's numbers this year are truly incredible. 6-2-1, 933 save percentage, and a 2.10 goals against average. I mean, those are Vezina numbers clearly if he keeps it up at that pace and the Stars continue.
And nobody should be surprised by that either,
No,
right?
no,
Like he's a first round pick and he's been doing this, since he entered the NHL. Like Ottinger, that, Drew. I mean, just for people who forgot, like Ottinger's been, a top prospect for the Stars for a long time. So I agree. And I think, look at when you have, I think is Duchesne on the third line. Like they've got Mason Marchment on the third line there.
Marchment, Duchesne, and Sagan are their third line.
Like guys, that's a top line on the Sharks.
It's a top line.
Like, I'm not joking. Or it's at the very least a second line. But absolutely, Drew. I think when you're comparing the Jets and the Stars, the forward depth is a wash. I think nobody has the advantage there, Dave.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I think to me the big test will be Connor Hellebuyck. Will he step up? And he likes to, when he knows that there's a marquee matchup. And I believe we've heard Connor Hellebuyck say how much he enjoys these afternoon games, So to me, Connor Hellebuyck is going to be the linchpin of this game because, again, the goaltending hasn't been fantastic. I mean, look, there's been a number of games where the Jets, Dylan DeMello's saves come to mind, right? Dylan DeMello making a pair of nice saves. Vlad Nemesnikov. Guys,
sorry, I agree with Spency, by the way. Ben versus Lowry would be a nice little tilt.
Yeah, but let's be realistic. Lowry's going to leave Ben to the guy who he knows likes to fight him. Nikolai Ehlers, of course. So we'll see if they fought at least once that I can recall. I don't know if they'll fight again, but no, I mean, I think the key in today's matchup is going to be Connor Hellebuyck because again, there have been a number of instances in that St. Louis game I think of specifically where those guys had the goaltender beat. They just shot the puck wide, and it could have changed the entire way the game looks. So you do need Connor Hellebuyck to play the way Connor Hellebuyck has been. And again, the Jets have been opportunistic and have been able to take advantage of these opportunities they've created for themselves in the way they've played better defensively. And they talked about, Scott O'Neill talked about it with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor coming back and then setting up that goal. They said they were excited about the goal, but they're also excited about the way it manifested itself. And so for me, that's going to be a key against this Dallas team because again, you're like you guys just touched on. This is a deep team. And it's not by mistake that they've been able to do what they've been able to do. So yeah, like I said, their power play isn't great right now. So that'll be good for the Jets. They can work on the PK if they need to. Yeah. But ultimately, you really need to have, again, you've been a very good 5-on-5 team. So you're going to need the difference, the edge potentially in between these two teams could come down to goaltending. And so you're going to need Connor Hellebuyck to play like Connor Hellebuyck has been over the last number of years.
And I just wanted to throw in one thing. Sorry, Drew. Like you mentioned, the power play for Dallas is not where they would like it to be. Similar to the Jets, though. I mean, with Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen, and we talked about Joe Pavelski. I think a future Hall of Famer. I think there's Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, right? Like the names go on and on and on. Matt Duchesne. I mean, that power play similar to the Jets. If that power play starts to get a little bit better. I mean, look out for the Dallas Stars, right? So you're absolutely right, though, Dave. I mean, there's going to be chances traded in this game. Both Hellebuyck and Ottinger are going to have to be really good. I would not expect a low-scoring game at all with these two teams, even though Dallas is a pretty damn good defensive team. And I think another thing, too, is Ryan Suter. This was written about by Saad Youssef for The Athletic. Ryan Suter is having a much better year because he's struggled a little bit to kind of find his groove after coming over from the Wild. So just wanted to throw that in there. But I agree, Dave. I mean, you can't really say it enough. Both of these teams are really deep, and you might give the advantage a little bit to the Stars right now when it comes to goaltending and defense, just because of how well Ottinger's playing. I wouldn't get too excited about saying that Ottinger is necessarily on the throne now for Hellebuyck. I think Hellebuck's going to be fine.
Well, and I think Hellebuyck will use that as motivation. I mean, not that he necessarily needs it, but I think Connor Hellebuyck has, and it was a good point you made, Dave, how much Connor Hellebuyck.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was a good point that I made. Thanks.
No, you haven't made a good point in a long time. Yeah, you're overdue for one, I would say.
It's been 4 or 5 years, I would say.
Yeah, talking about how much Hellebuck likes the afternoon games because his record as in the afternoon games is quite.
He also
impressive.
loves Tuesday games, Drew. Tuesdays are
Tuesday
one of
games.
his
Tuesdays,
favorites.
and imagine if he played on a Tuesday afternoon. Boy, the world would just that would be really where he's
No,
at.
He wants to
Tuesday
play on-
evenings. He doesn't like Wednesdays though. Wednesdays just bother him. He'd rather just have the day off on Wednesday.
Okay,
If he wants, he can go down to the Moose. He can go down on a conditioning assignment to the Moose and play for the Moose on Monday morning, 10:30.
There you go. Who knows who knows how he feels about Monday morning games?
7,000 screaming kids yelling and screaming the entirety of the game.
But I was going to say, you look at these two teams, and
Good
there's
point
sort
by
of that.
T. Pauly. Sorry, Drew. I mean, it's true. Hellebuck and Ottinger right now, if there was a World Cup of hockey, they'd be 1-2.
They would certainly, for the U.S., they would
Yep.
certainly be. And Canada, I don't even know who Canada's goalie would be, but that's a separate issue
It
altogether.
would be Jordan Binnington, obviously.
Oh God. But I was going to say, this is a very Spider-Man meme sort of game between these two teams. I think a lot of similarities, as we touched on goaltending. I mean, I think I like the Stars forward group a little bit more. I think they just probably have a little bit more scoring all throughout. I mean, the Jets have been terrific. We know their forwards have not been the issue, and I think I like the Stars defense a little bit more. So I would give an advantage to the Dallas Stars, but I don't think it's a.
They've also been a good.
one.
They've also been a very good road team. I think they're 5-1.
5-1. Yeah, exactly right. So I mean, look, this isn't a sizable advantage. I think these two teams are very similar, and I think this is. I mean, the both teams are coming off of victories. I think Dallas was down 2-0 to Columbus, and then scored 5 unanswered goals on.
And then they realized they were
Thursday
playing
night.
Columbus.
Yeah, exactly. So they won handily there. The Dallas have been playing good hockey in the last in their last number of games. They're 7-3 in their last 10. The Jets are 6-2 in their last 10. This is going to be a good hockey game. This is going to be, I think, a very entertaining hockey game between two teams that fancy themselves as contenders and towards the top of the Central Division. So I do believe that this is going to be one of those games that is proverbially worth the money that you pay for today, and I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to it. The Stars defense, I mean, it's not both teams defense, I think would leave me, if you had to upgrade either team, or if their respective general managers are probably going to be looking to upgrade on either team, I would say it's probably on the back end for both of these guys, for both of these teams. I mean, the Stars with Suter and Heiskanen. I mean, Heiskanen is still is the stud on the back end there. I know Suter is probably still got some name cachet, and he's been better this year, but he's not what Ryan Suter once was, when he was in the prime of his career. Esa Lindell, also a very, a good defenseman. And then there's sort of the next three guys are a little less well known, not as household names, in Hakanpää and Thomas Harley and Lundqvist. Sorry, what he said?
Those are all good players, though. Like, I agree with you. They're not household names, but Hakanpää is obviously what is he, 6'5", Dave, or something like that, 6'4". He's a big defenseman, and I mean, and Thomas Harley, he's a young defenseman. He's only 23, 24 years old. Like, I think who's the other guy they have?
And Harley was a first-round pick, so I mean, it's not like Harley doesn't have a pedigree.
Joel Hanley, is that the other guy that they went recently? They went 7 defensemen, and just as an aside, they went 7 defensemen and 11 forwards recently, a few games back when Duchesne was still out of the lineup. And Pete DeBoer, I thought, had a very interesting comment, because we've talked about the 7 and 11, 7 defensemen, 11 forwards before, right? And he said he doesn't really like it because that means that you have to play a couple forwards, most likely, 25, 26, 27 minutes. And I think Jason Robertson was around 27 or 28 minutes. I just thought it was interesting that he didn't really want to play 7 defensemen and 11 forwards. But you're right, Drew, if there is, something that you're looking at, if you're Jim Nill, and obviously, Dallas is playing well, I don't think a trade is imminent. Like, I don't think they're going to trade for Nikita Zadorov. I know T. Konopoli thinks he might be a good fit for the Jets. I just, look, at Zadorov's big. He can move. He's a physical player. I just don't know if I necessarily see a fit for Zadorov on the Jets. I'm also not really sure why Zadorov is so unhappy in Calgary. It's
everybody's unhappy in Calgary, I think. I think that's
we got to give a shout thanks to T. Konopoli for the donation to the IC fund. That was very kind of you. He wants us to talk about Zadorov to Winnipeg, but it sounds like Zadorov wants a beach town. So it sounds
he says apparently, according to Chris Johnson, he says he would be happy to go to Toronto. Like if you look at the tweet from CJ yesterday,
there's
and
the Lake Huron. There's a number of
Lake
lakes
Ontario. What he said
Muskoka
is
is a beautiful place, boys.
Yeah, what CJ said yesterday after Kevin Weeks, I think maybe had the initial tweet. CJ then followed up and said, Zadorov would welcome a trade to Toronto, and they specified Toronto, which is, I mean, I'm not sure how the Leafs are.
The only
fitting
problem
Zadorov's salary
is just Brad Treliving wants Zadorov. You know what I mean? Like, there's the Calgary connection there, but I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know. I don't think Zadorov is what Toronto needs right now. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I mean, he's an okay defenseman, but is Zadorov like a second pairing defenseman on a good team? Like, I just don't know. I think he's it's been mixed results for him in his career.
Yeah, and he's got some offensive upside. I mean, I think last year he had 14 goals, but I mean, I just don't know that any team is willing to give up a young prospect for him, because that's what Calgary needs. They need youth and they need skill, and I just don't know that there's going to be an overwhelming demand for Zadorov, especially at this point.
Like, does Zadorov maybe get you a second round draft pick or a third round draft pick? Like, I don't know. I don't know what a team would
those are Nino Niederreiter numbers right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I for those asking, I don't expect the Jets to be in on him, but again, it's unlike the Jets to make a trade. Just
Stanley for Zadorov, 1-for-1.
There you go. The trade is 1-for-1. Call it in. That one I'm okay with. If you call that one in, Ginsburg, I'm okay with that.
By the way, Drew, we got to give Bailey's dad a happy birthday shout out.
Happy birthday, Bailey's dad. When we come back, Ted Wyman joins us for Jets Talk, Bomber Talk, much more on a Super Saturday here with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
"I sure do."
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Boston Pizza harnessed Fanalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Fanalytics.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake after a great game or great deal. It shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at zappiagroup.com.
Are you dreaming of your very own backyard rink this winter, but dreading the work involved? Well, stress no longer, because the Rink Guys are here to make it happen. The Rink Guys are Winnipeg's first outdoor skating rink installation and rink maintenance service. The Rink Guys offers free site evaluations and different rink construction options. Plus, they use a custom-sized liner to prevent any damage to your lawn. Lighting packages are also available to help illuminate your rink during those long, dark winter nights. To get your rink started today, visit therinkguys.com. Saturday morning, we're back with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, getting you set for the Jets and the Dallas Stars, the Bombers and the Lions, and then the Illegal Curve post-game show right around 4:30 or so this afternoon. A very busy day ahead. We're thrilled to welcome to the program our very good friends, the sports editor for the Winnipeg Sun, Ted Wyman, joins us on the program. Teddy, how are you, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm great. Great to see you guys. Great to be involved in your show on this Super Saturday.
Super Saturday indeed. It's going to be a busy, busy day as everyone or a lot of people are going to try and do the doubleheader. Another second straight year, I think they've had to try and do the doubleheader, or be given last year the same sort of conflict between the Jets and the Bombers, with the Bombers Western Final and the Jets having to move the start time. But I think it's a good problem to have, is what that is. And Teddy will touch on the Bombers, of course, throughout the course of this interview. But we'll start with the Winnipeg Jets. A good start to the season, certainly as of late. This Winnipeg Jets team is playing some impressive hockey. Points in 8 of their last 9, 7-4-2 so far this season. When you watch the Jets so far this year, what's standing out to you more than, say, maybe that you didn't necessarily expect at the beginning of the year?
It's going to be funny because I think I could answer a question about the Jets and the Bombers with the same word that impresses me the most, and it's balance, guys. I mean, in all honesty, the balance of these Jets lines is something I don't know that we've really seen before. And I mean, the way they've moved the talent, the scoring around to have a line like the Lowry, Niederreiter, Appleton line doing so much, and then you've got Perfetti and Ehlers on a line, and then the top line, it's sort of freed up this top line with Scheifele and Connor on it to be really successful. And I just think it's something that people have clamored for years, to sort of build that balance and have more of a top 9 than a top 6 and a bottom 6. And I think that's what the Jets have right now. And it comes in waves. I think the fourth line's looking pretty solid as well, and particularly in terms of their possession. So that's what has impressed me the most. And I think the fact that for a lot of the games, it seemed like I thought they were playing really good analytical hockey, possession-wise. They were doing really well, but then the special teams were just awful for a while. They've stabilized those, and look at what's happening. They're winning hockey games.
Yeah, and we talked about this after the Preds-Jets game, Ted, and I'm sure that you guys have talked about it on Jets setting, right? Like, and obviously in print in the Winnipeg Sun, right? Like, the Hellebuck and Brossoit have been good, but they haven't been, at that excellent level that we thought, with Brossoit being the starting goalie for Vegas in the first round and having a good year last year with the Golden Knights, and obviously Hellebuck just being Hellebuck, his normal Vezina self. So when you consider that the goaltending hasn't had to steal games many nights, and then also the fact that Ehlers, Perfetti, Nemesnikov, they've been good, but also they haven't been necessarily at the same level as the Scheifele line or the Lowry line. So it kind of, makes you wonder, like Drew mentioned this last week, he asked Dave and I, like, is the ceiling higher than maybe we thought at the beginning of the year? I still think the Jets are the second or third best team in the Central. But you wonder, I mean, if they keep playing like this, and sustain it throughout a season, if the Jets maybe could be the best team in the Central.
Well, it's winning games in different ways, right? And I mean, you can't expect your goaltender to win all of them for you, but they've got the goalies, particularly in Hellebuck, who can win some for you, even if you're not the better team on the ice. So that's a bonus. But when I think this team is playing well enough to win most of the games they've played this year, I'm trying I've watched all the games, and I'm trying to think of ones where they just weren't in it. They didn't really deserve a chance to get 2 points in that game. And there's not very many, there really aren't. And I think that that's what's really encouraging for me. Even early on in the season, they were around 500 or a little below. And I was looking at it thinking, maybe this was when there was 8 games into the season. I was saying they could have had 7 wins. So I do think that they're playing a good enough brand of hockey. It's not crazy. It's not like I'm sitting there going, wow, this is a Stanley Cup contender right now. I don't see that with this team, not necessarily, but they're playing pretty good hockey. Now, the thing that obviously comes to mind for me is we've seen this picture before, haven't we? This was a really good team early last season. So it's all going to be about how much they can sustain this for the whole season, not have any of those crazy dips like they had last year, not have players check out like they had last year. They've got to have this sustained for the whole season. They do so. I think you're right, realistically, second or third in the Central. And when you get into the playoffs, maybe you get a home playoff series, you got a chance to make some noise.
Well, it was a week ago today, Teddy, that you guys at the Winnipeg Sun, specifically Scott Billick, broke the news that Nino Niederreiter wants an extension in Winnipeg, and Scott wrote about it again in the Sun a couple days later, adding more specificity to the deals.
Give that man a raise, Ted.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to give Scott a raise. But no, I think, first of all, it helps dismiss that idea, right, Ted, that nobody wants to sign in Winnipeg. And Winnipeg is this. Scott O'Neill talked about it a little bit, talking about how folks, what the Jets organization did for Neil Pionk, Alex Iafallo, and some of the other Minnesota guys, getting them to Adam Johnson's funeral and celebration of life, how that resonates. And you see it, right? Nino Niederreiter, not saying that had an impact, obviously, but I mean, the report comes out from Scott that Nino Niederreiter wants an extension. So, I mean, Scott said that his agent's going to be in town. So do you think that this is going to be something that's going to be imminent, or do you think it's just more of the details are being fleshed out right now? And again, what does that say about the city and the organization, that players like Nino Niederreiter, who could command quite a bit on the UFA market if he goes to that in July, is saying he wants to stay here around in Winnipeg?
Well, that's definitely a thing, that's Scott's baby, that story. And he would definitely have more information. He's the one who's been talking to the agent. He's the one that has the information. But in my opinion, just reading that story was definitely, I think, good to see if you're coming from a Jets fan perspective, because this is what the perception is that guys don't want to be here, right? You've got Pierre-Luc Dubois come here. He couldn't wait to get out, right? That's not what anybody wants to see. They want to believe that players can come to Winnipeg, recognize that there's a good culture in the room. I'm not sure there has been a good culture in the room in the past, but maybe they're starting to build one here, and I think that's important. And then a good feeling around the city, a place where fans really care about it, and an organization that really takes care of their players. Now, if there's one thing, we could criticize the Jets for a lot of things over the years, but I don't think you would say that they don't take care of their players. I think they do. I think they've done an excellent job of making guys comfortable here, making guys want to stay, even if it's not the most desirable market in the league. We've seen other guys do it. Nino Niederreiter hasn't been here for long, but he seems like the kind of player that if he gets into a place where he feels comfortable, where he can play good hockey, and where the team has a chance to be successful, that he's going to want to stay. And I mean, in all honesty, he just as these conversations have been going on, he's been playing as well as he's played as a Jet that I've seen, and he's really contributing well. And as I said before, I mean, I know Scott had a thing about this last week, and I often watch the analytics and how the lines are doing comparatively. And that line at one time, at least in the last week or so, was the number 3 or 4 line in the entire NHL. This is what you would maybe started the season calling a third line for the Jets. I just think it's fantastic the way Adam Lowry is handling the puck this year. He's not just a bruising guy. He's not just a presence out there physically. He's actually really looking good offensively. And obviously Mason Appleton's out of his mind right now, scoring points like it's like he's going to have his career high by quadruple at this point, it seems like. And I think maybe Niederreiter is the key to that, because he brings such an amount of talent to that line. And he's also got that grit. And again, I think that's one of the big reasons the Jets are doing just fine right now, because you got a good first line. And if you got 2 lines behind them that are, contributing really well as well, you're in a good shape.
Absolutely, you're in a good shape. Ted Wyman, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. The Jets and the Dallas Stars coming up this afternoon. The Illegal Curve post-game show a little bit later on. And, of course, the Bombers and the BC Lions after the Jets and the Stars and after the post-game show. Got to keep your priorities in line here, folks. Let me ask you this, Ted. Sort of, last year, obviously, the Jets got off to the good start, as we all remember. And Kevin Cheveldayoff sort of spoke about, bringing in reinforcements for this team, and he did in Vlad Nemesnikov and in Niederreiter. So can't say he didn't do anything, but I think for most people last year and still this year, the big question mark or the big area of let's say concern, for lack of a better word, is on the back end. Is that a priority from your perspective? Let's say, most things stay equal, throughout the course of the season, and with the Jets that we see are not a mirage. How important are reinforcements on the back end from your perspective?
It's such a tough one because you look at that back end and you say, how are you doing that? And like, if everyone's healthy, who's being taken out and how are you making that back end so much better? It would literally, in my mind, have to be a trade of one of those defensemen to upgrade what you've got there. And I don't know how conceivable that is. Nate Schmidt, obviously, I think could be in or out of the lineup. He hasn't been great. He certainly hasn't been terrible, but he's a veteran. He's got a very big contract. So you got to figure out what you would do with that if you didn't want him to be a part of the team anymore. Would anybody take it? Maybe late in the season, yeah, but probably not sooner. And then, you've still got guys hanging around like Stanley and Chisholm. And then is there, who else isn't playing well enough for you right now? I think DeMello and Morrissey are doing pretty well. Brendan Dillon, the guy's like a scoring machine right now. So, I mean, why wouldn't you want that guy on your team? And honestly, to me, Brendan Dillon's such a glue guy. I don't think you'd want to take him out of the mix of this team. I think he's too important.
Preach, Ted, preach.
Well, I mean,
I agree with you. I don't think he's talked about enough. Yeah, very underrated.
Right, he's scoring and he plays good defense. I don't know why you'd ever want to take that guy out of it. That's just my opinion. Neil Pionk, up and down, but there's another guy that really seems to like playing for Winnipeg and cares about it, and he's got skills at both ends of the ice. So that's the question for me, guys, is if you want to upgrade that D, just how are you going to do it? In my mind right now, I don't know what the answer is to that.
No, I think, none of us do. Nobody does, because, I mean, we saw what the Oilers had to give up to acquire Matthias Ekholm, right? Like, they had to give up Tyson Barrie, Reed Schaefer, who's a top prospect.
They had to give up the ability to score goals, apparently, in the offseason as well.
Right. And hey, look, I mean, the Oilers are the low-hanging fruit right now, but we're still going to take that low-hanging fruit because the Oilers are
they might have
target.
Candy in them.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think you're right, Drew. Ted, we talk about this every year, how hard it is to acquire, a top pairing or even top four defenseman. You're going to have to give up a lot, not only a roster player, but you're going to have to most likely give up a draft pick and or a prospect in your system, right? So I agree with you. I think, the defense, I think, is the obvious area that you would want to address prior to the deadline. And it's not like Chevy doesn't know that. I'm sure, he's, keeping an eye on who might be available. I don't think Nikita Zadorov personally, Ted, is the answer, but I want to ask you about Gabe Vilardi, because he started skating this week, and we know that he's going to be back in the next, week, 2 weeks, something like that. We don't know exactly when he's going to be back, but people are already talking about, who's going to come out of the lineup. Is Cole Perfetti going to go back up the middle? Like, what? I know it's a tough question to answer right now, but I mean, what do you see happening? Do you see Gabe Vilardi going back up to that top line and then Perfetti moving to the middle, or like what's kind of your take on that situation once Vilardi comes back?
Well, there was talk in training camp about Vilardi playing center as well. So there's another, maybe a possibility. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, like, to me, although Vlad Mestikov plays really good hockey for the Winnipeg Jets, and he is a really good guy to play with for Ehlers and Perfetti, he's not going to get you a lot of points. He just doesn't have that great touch around the net. So, that's he might help generate offense. He might help generate scoring chances or shot attempts, but he doesn't really have that touch. So I think that you can improve your top six if you've got Gabe Vilardi in there. And I think that, David Gustafsson probably comes out of the lineup and Nemestikov moves down. And I don't know how that works with the center ice position, but that's not an easy decision, because obviously having Nemestikov there has been pretty stabilizing. So I mean, I hadn't really thought about it much yet. I think it's a nice problem for the Jets to have. I wouldn't break up the top line though. I think Iafallos fit in really nicely with Scheifele and Connor, and they're doing very well. In fact, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but Mark Scheifele's playing as well as I've seen him play since 2018 right now. And I think Kyle Connor's reaping a lot of the benefits. He's scoring goals like crazy, tied for second in the league in goal scoring yesterday, at least before last night's game. Why would you break that up? Maybe somewhere down the road, but right now that line's hot. So you're going to find a spot for Velarde. He is going to improve this hockey team. And as I said before, that's a heck of a problem to have, trying to fit somebody like that in.
You might go Ehlers, Velarde, Perfetti on that second line, right?
You could.
These are, I mean, think about it. Think about how different this team is, from years past where, you'd be like, well, why are some of these guys still in the lineup when they're full, when the team's fully healthy, versus now there's, you're wondering who's going to come out of the lineup because everybody deserves a spot right now when they're back to full health. It's a complete role reversal when it comes to the forward depth, because we're used to just seeing, fill-ins. I saw a line. There was a line last night that I think I saw on Twitter. It was talking about the Leafs, but it said, you can win with an average fourth line or a mediocre fourth line. You can't win with an AHL level fourth line. And I think you're almost seeing that, bear itself out with the Jets a little bit so far this year.
The Jets have always been, in my opinion, piecing together a fourth line in years past. And this year, I think they've put out players that have more potential at very least. And I mean, Rasmus Kupari, I don't know. He's fast. He gets after guys. He seems to generate chances. He's had some really good games in terms of possession. Not really looking like he's got the super scoring touch, but maybe that's why he is where he is. But that seems like to have a guy that drives the net the way he does, to have a guy that's driving offense the way that he does on your fourth line, that's really valuable. And I think the Jets have the ability to roll guys out there more than they have in the past. It's not just, I don't want to be mean, but there's been a lot of years where kind of your last minute $700,000, $800,000 signing off of the free agent list has been the guy that they're plugging in onto that fourth line. Somebody who had some success in the league in the past, but really wasn't, at their top of their game anymore. And now you're putting in a guy that, guys, in fact, with the other young guys on that line, like Gustafsson and Morgan Barron. I mean, I think Morgan Barron's an excellent hockey player. I think he has looked really good for the Jets ever since he came over and makes that trade that Kevin Cheveldayoff made to when Andrew Kopp wanted to leave look really good. So again, this is a young line. It's one player they drafted, two players they traded for. And it's as good as I've seen a fourth line, at least in terms of being really competitive and having chances to score goals, that we've really seen for a while with the Jets. Again, I look back to 2018. That was when the Jets were at their best in the playoffs. They had a great fourth line then. Hasn't been so good since.
Ted Wyman, our guest Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg with you, getting you set for the Jets and the Stars. That'll be this afternoon. Then the Illegal Curve post-game show, and then the Bombers and the Lions in the West Final shortly thereafter, later this evening.
Ted, you mentioned his name already, but I got to ask you about him, Alex Iafallo, because I mean, to me, it's amazing. We knew about Iafallo, of course, but the big piece was Velarde in that deal this summer. If you would have told me that Alex Iafallo would be the guy leading with all the points over Pierre-Luc Dubois, who has 8 he has 4 goals, 4 assists. Iafallo, 4 goals, 8 assists for 12 points. And of course, if Velarde was healthy, he'd probably be, somewhere in that mix. But to me, Alex Iafallo has been such found money. I mean, we didn't know exactly what to expect. And as you said, he's really made that first line go. So has he pleasantly surprised you based on, the expectation being Velarde being the key to that trade? But right now, Iafallo is really driving things with the top line.
Velarde's the key for the long term. Iafallo has been really good right now. There's no doubt about it. And you have to give credit, I think, to Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel for putting him in a position to be successful. The guy's on the power play. I don't know that everybody realized when the trade was made that they were getting a guy who was a power play specialist. And Alex Iafallo is out there and he's been useful in those situations. And he is on the top line right now. When you're playing with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, these are very good offensive players. You're probably going to get some points. So Pierre-Luc Dubois, maybe he's got to generate his own points. This guy's getting, the benefit of being with 2 really good players. Anyways, I'm not talking down Alex Iafallo at all. He's been, I think, a really good player for the Jets this season, a really good addition. And there's reasons why we talked about all these things, about the fact that the Jets are much more balanced this season, that they're playing a better brand of hockey overall, that they're driving possession more than they have in the past. Those reasons are that the changes, the additions that they made from last season have been working, in my opinion. I think that's a big part of it. And Iafallo and Kupari, you can't say much about Velarde yet, but he's going to come in here and be another addition. And I think they're a big part of how this is working. And I'll also say it's partly about subtraction, because in some ways, I think it was always difficult with Blake Wheeler. You know, he's one of the highest paid players on the team. He was the captain. They were going to give him the top line minutes, and maybe at times it seemed like he should have been playing in a little bit of a lesser role. And without him here, you don't have to worry about that. You do whatever you want in terms of setting up those top lines. If Alex Iafallo came here to be a third liner, well, so be it. But he's a top liner right now, and he's doing really well.
Ted, you know, you mentioned Scott Arniel, and obviously he's in a situation that he doesn't want to be in, with Rick Bowness and Judy Bowness having the health issues. How do you think he's acquitted himself behind the Jets bench? You know, as this sort of I guess it's almost his second stint as the interim head coach when Rick has been dealing with some personal issues last year with COVID as well. So how do you think how do you think Scott has acquitted himself so far this year?
I wish I had the numbers in front of me, because I'm thinking back to the time when Rick Bowness had COVID last year and Scott Arniel was behind the bench. And I think the Jets did really well then, and they're doing really well now. So I think he's done nothing but a fine job. I think, honestly, there were certainly Winnipeg people in the offseason after Dave Lowry was let go, that said, well, the Jets are just going to go get another Winnipeg retread, and they just want to bring in guys who had associations with the old Jets and the Moose, and they're going to bring in Scott Arniel. And sure enough, they did. And people kind of dismissed that in a way. But you know what? The Jets got a really good coach, and a really valuable coach, because he can step in and do what they need to be done when Rick Bowness isn't here. And I think Scott Arniel will be a fine head coach in the NHL. He may be the head coach of this Winnipeg Jets team. We don't know the situation with Rick Bowness right now or going forward. You know, Rick is almost a legend of coaching in the NHL, because he's been doing it longer than anybody. But he's not a young man. So how soon does he look to step away and go on and enjoy his life? And I think Scott Arniel would be an excellent replacement for him, and just to carry forward what's been started here.
Okay, Ted. So obviously this is a Winnipeg Jets, Manitoba Moose centric show, but we got to ask you. I just finished reading your piece today in the Winnipeg Sun about the Bombers and Lions game coming up, CFL West final. And I mean, you nailed it. And you've been talking about this all year long. The running game, Brady Oliveira, he is the MOP, in my opinion. I think most people would agree with that. What is your, I guess, main matchups, and what is your, I guess, what are you going to be looking at? What's your prediction for today's game? Obviously, we're all pulling for the Bombers here.
Well, let's go back to the word that I used to describe the Jets: balance. To me, that's the advantage for the Bombers, because here's the situation. The BC Lions are the top passing team in the CFL. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are the second best passing team in the CFL. Zach Collaros and Vernon Adams are the two most prolific passers in the league. I do think Chad Kelly's probably going to, emerge. He did emerge as the all-star quarterback out of Toronto. There's no doubt about it. But these guys actually had more prolific numbers, more passing yards, more touchdowns than Kelly did. You've got an absolute marquee matchup there. The big difference between these two offenses is that Winnipeg also leads the league in rushing yards and has the league's number one rusher, MOP candidate, in Brady Oliveira. The BC Lions were 9th, and there's only 9 teams in the league in rushing. So they were, they do not have a good rushing game. Taquan Mizell just hasn't had the same kind of dynamism as Brady Oliveira. So I think that's an absolute factor that works really well in Winnipeg's favor. And the Lions said yesterday, and they were pretty open about it, maybe this is just smokescreen, because surely they're going to try to run the football. But, Rick Campbell and Vernon Adams both said, well, we're not going to try to be balanced just to be balanced. if what we do well is throw the ball and complete passes downfield using our excellent receivers, that's what we're going to do. And if they do get a running game going, it would probably be Vernon Adams doing it himself. The Bombers certainly feel that they're prepared to deal with VA's ability to run. But again, I just think if there's a lot of evenness with these teams. They're both really close defensively in terms of their numbers. They both got excellent defensive lines, really good secondaries, really good special teams, kickers, everything. It's all very close. I did this tail of the tape looking at it, and you guys would be amazed how many times Winnipeg was number 1 and BC was number 2 or 3. It's really, really close. But the one thing that really stands out is Winnipeg's running game. So it's not super cold, but it's a cold day for a lot of people. Winnipeg, this is nothing. But for a lot of people, it's still a cold day. It's winter. There's going to be 30,000 plus fans in the stands. Brady Oliveira expects to get the rock a lot and to punish the BC Lions, and I expect that to happen as well.
And just 1 second, I know Drew wants to jump in here, but Nick Dembski and Rashid Bailey, they're still game time, right?
Yeah, they're game time. I mean, I'm not going to say 100% for sure that they're going to play, but I feel like they've been tracking all week to play. It's a huge game. What are you going to hold them back for? If they're hurt a little bit, I mean, you wouldn't want to damage someone's career going forward, but I do think that it's important enough of a game that they'll probably play. They were on the field for practices on Tuesday and Wednesday, running around a little bit, but not listed. They were listed as did not practice. Thursday, which was a closed practice, they were listed as limited. We have no idea how much they actually took part in that practice. It could be more than the Bombers are saying. It could be less. We don't know. And then, and as everyone suspected, they were listed as game time decisions because of that. That could be because they actually are deciding whether they're going to put them in there or not, or it could be just to mess with the Lions. So I
wouldn't be surprised if it was the latter, Teddy.
Bailey, and if I'm wrong, I apologize.
Yeah, a little bit of subterfuge. Never, come playoff time is not unusual. Last one, the loss of Dalton Schoen, though. I mean, that's certainly significant. He's a game breaker for the Bombers. Is that maybe mitigated a little bit by the weather conditions? I mean, it's not expected to necessarily be, offensive firepower. Midsummer, air it out, Dunnigan going for 740 yards kind of night. So does that maybe mitigate the impact of that a little bit? Not saying that it's not a huge loss, of course, for the Bombers.
I don't think weather is a huge factor in this game, guys. I think these teams are going to operate their offenses exactly the way that they always would. And in that case, the Bombers can't operate it exactly as they always would because they don't have Dalton Schoen. That's Zach Collaros' favorite target for the last 2 years. He's an absolute demon in the red zone. He's been scoring touchdowns, 26 touchdowns in 2 seasons. I mean, come on, that's insane. The man is going to get paid next year somewhere, and when he is a free agent, and it's really going to be. I think for a lot of Bomber fans, they hope they haven't seen the last of Dalton Schoen in Winnipeg because it's not going to be easy for the Bombers to re-sign him. That's a little bit of an aside, but the guy that really I think becomes the most important player for the Bombers receiving core now is Kenny Lawler. I mean, the reason they brought Kenny Lawler in here was to be a star quarterback or star receiver, and he probably would have been an all-star had he played the whole season. He had 900 yards as it is, and he only played 12 games. And he's a dynamic player, and he wants that ball so bad, and he will go out and beat guys for it. He's great, really good, I think, at the throw behind, where he'll come back to the football, and he wins those ones a lot. I remember how good of a game he had in the West Final in 2021. He made an absolutely ridiculous catch to help the Bombers beat the Rough Riders and get to the Grey Cup. He came back to Winnipeg specifically so he could play in games like this and have a chance to get to the Grey Cup because it was no fun for him at all being in Edmonton where they weren't a good team. I think Kenny Lawler probably steps up and has a huge game. You'll see a lot assuming Dembski's out there, you'll see a lot of him as well. And Drew Wolotarski is an underrated receiver as well. And he can do a lot of what Schoen does, in terms of the tough catches over the middle. So I don't think the Bombers are in a terrible position even without Schoen, but you can't minimize the fact that he is one of the best players in the CFL and they aren't going to have him.
It's a super sports Saturday. We started saying that at the beginning of the interview. We'll end it with that as well. Ted Wyman.
Yeah, that's why we brought you on. There's nobody else that we could have on with the, a Jets afternoon game and the Bombers and the Lions in the West Final. I've been thinking about having you on for a couple weeks. So I'm glad that you're able to join us, because today's going to be just awesome, especially for the restaurant and hospitality industry in Winnipeg.
So we're not going to talk any curling then? We're just
next
good
week.
with the two?
Next week we'll talk curling.
All right.
Next week we're fine with that. Then we'll bring you on for the Rock Talk show, or the hog line violation curling show is what we're going to start up next week. We can do that with you, Ted.
Can I steal that? That sounds
good. You can. Feel free. Just give us credit once, and then you can have it for the rest of your time.
You don't have to give us credit. Just steal it.
All right, guys.
Thank you,
Great
buddy.
to see you. Have a good day.
Likewise,
too,
Ted Wyman, sports editor for the Winnipeg Sun. Have a great Saturday. There he goes, joining us this morning on the Illegal
It's a
Curve
good day to be a
hockey
Winnipeg
show.
sports fan. It doesn't get any better than this. I
Well,
wish I was going to both. I'm going to neither.
Well, it's almost like doing the both, but it's the complete opposite, and that is what you're going to
Well,
experience.
I mean, you guys are gallivanting around Winnipeg. I have a post-game show to prepare for.
True. Ezzy is doing the post-game show tonight. Ezzy and special guest. And I'll tell you what, we'll tell you who that special guest is on the other side of these commercial messages. Dave, are you gone? Dave, no, you're sticking around? I thought you were leaving. I thought you had somewhere to be this morning.
I got lots of time. Not getting picked up for 20 minutes. So we're
okay. So Dave,
where else does Dave M need to be?
I thought he was leaving. He said he was leaving at 10 o'clock earlier. So
place to be.
Okay, Dave's still going to be here. We'll still be here. You should still be here too. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on this Saturday morning.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs, from restorative to cosmetic dentistry, and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Boston Pizza harnessed Fanalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Fanalytics.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake. After a great game or great deal, it shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at zappiagroup.com.
Are you dreaming of your very own backyard rink this winter, but dreading the work involved? Well, stress no longer, because the Rink Guys are here to make it happen. The Rink Guys are Winnipeg's first outdoor skating rink installation and rink maintenance service. The Rink Guys offer free site evaluations and different rink construction options. Plus, they use a custom-sized liner to prevent any damage to your lawn. Lighting packages are also available to help illuminate your rink during those long, dark winter nights. To get your rink started today, visit therinkguys.com. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning. This day in Winnipeg Jets history is courtesy of our friend Joe Pascucci, the Minnesota North Stars, so the precursor to the Winnipeg Jets, precursor to the Dallas Stars.
I'm like, huh?
Defeated the Winnipeg Jets 15-2 on this day 42 years ago.
Barn burner.
Yeah, it was a nail biter. I hope you took the over on the Betway line when you wagered on that.
I think it was Sports Select back then.
1981. I think it was a bookie in a smoky bar is what it was in 1981. There was no, I don't think there was anything professional about that. But this courtesy of our buddy Joe Pascucci, bringing back some bad memories. I don't think that it's going to be a 15-2 score this afternoon when the Jets and the Dallas Stars do battle. But one thing I can tell you for sure is that Joe Pascucci is going to be joining Mr. Ginsburg on tonight's post-game show. So after the Jets and the Dallas Stars come back here to our YouTube channel, Ezra and our good friend Joe Pascucci will bring you the latest on the Winnipeg Jets Dallas Stars game. So that's about 4:30 or so this afternoon. Dave M is off doing Dave M things, and I'm going to the game with my kids and my wife. So I'm going to spend a little bit of family time, and we'll turn over the keys to this to trusty Mr. Ginsburg.
Super pumped. I mean, we've had Joe on the show many times before, going back to the TSN 1290 days. I believe Joe did a couple games last year with Drew when Dave and I were out of commission. So really looking forward to it. I texted Joe earlier this week and he was able to do it. And, anybody who, followed the Jets 1.0, I mean, Joe Pascucci, and CKND and then Global was obviously, a huge part of the Jets coverage in the city. And he's just a great guy. We've become friends with him over the years, and he's always providing all those, historic Jets moments. I think we all, follow Joe on Twitter. You should be following Joe. On X.
He's great for Winnipeg. For Winnipeg sports history.
Joe is the Winnipeg Jets historian. And we've had him on.
Jets, Bombers too. He's got a Bomber
you're right, and Bombers
as well.
But after Dale Hawerchuk obviously tragically passed away, I remember Joe Pascucci joined us, and there's nobody better to talk about the Jets 1.0, the Hawerchuk Solani era. People that are our age. Obviously remember, the younger generation won't remember Joe Pascucci, but now because he shares all of those Jets historic moments, the younger generation, and that's what we're trying to also bring. We're trying to, for those young ones, the Baileys, that age, we're trying to, expose them to Joe Pascucci, because as I mentioned, he's a great guy, and nobody knows more about Winnipeg sports than Joe.
Yeah, exactly right. So the Ezzy and Joe Pascucci, they are on this afternoon. It'll be a fun post-game show after the Jets.
Joe and Ezzy, that sounds like a spin-off show.
Joe and Ezzy? Yeah.
I can see that every Sunday night.
Hang on. I'm getting word from Joe. He says no. He says absolutely not. No.
In fact, now he's not. In fact, he's not going to do Saturday Tonight's show anymore either.
He's blocked me on X, and he's blocked my cell phone number. So I guess I guess it is going to be the Ginsburg experience tonight. Drew, give me any tips that you have.
Drink would be my first. Drink
would
be my first.
A few icy beers. I mean, it's not going to be a late post game show. It's going to be around 4:45.
Look,
5 o'clock.
Naomi would be very, very happy if you stumbled upstairs after the post-game show, half cut at 6 o'clock, trying to deal with the kids. I don't see any blowback.
No, they're gone. They took off this morning. They're going to Lac de Bonnie. I have the whole house to myself, Drew.
Ooh. Fancy, that's your call.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you have a Jets afternoon game, a post-game show, and then a Bombers game, Naomi knows what to do. She has to leave Winnipeg.
I'm not sure Lac de Bonnie's far enough for her, but nonetheless,
a couple hours in the beautiful Eastman region.
There you go. So Ezzy's flying solo, folks. So may God have mercy on all of us and everything else along those lines. Let me ask you guys this question, and I was thinking about this, not necessarily with Zadorov, but 12 games in. some of these teams are going to begin to, churn, make some roster decisions. And, some people strike early. The Jets are not typically a team that would strike early when it comes to the trade market. But I think everyone would agree that, the Jets defense as currently constructed is not quite at that upper echelon yet.
Mm-hmm.
What are you willing, you put on your general manager's hat, your prognostication hat, what assets are you willing to give up to bolster that Jets defense? Is it a sort of, is it a home run swing, or is it a swing for a double? How many chips are you thinking the Jets should push in when it comes to making the necessary upgrades, to elevate their lineup, assuming that they continue to play at a similar level to how they've played so far?
Yeah, I mean, I look, let's put it this way. I don't think the Jets are going to be making any big deals right now because things seem to be working. And sure, if the opportunity provides itself and someone comes calling and there's but Kevin Cheveldayoff tends not to go for like the Zadorov type of situation where, again, I'm just using that as an example because it's present. I'm not saying for him specifically, but that idea of a guy who's put himself out there and that's not necessarily, he's trying to go to, widen the market and get as many options as he can. So Kevin Cheveldayoff likes to operate in the shadows and be a little quieter about, a little more discreet in that regard, more, as we talk about for years, the Paul Stastny style deal where you see them do something like that. So, I mean, I look, I think there's a couple of factors, Drew. I mean, look, you want to see what Ville Heinola can bring. We all talk about how good he looked in training camp. And of course, when he got injured the way he did, you thought to yourself, okay, well, that's unfortunate because he probably was going to push someone like Nate Schmidt out of the lineup and flip over to the right side. So to me, I wonder if they want to see what they've got in Ville Heinola first and what he's capable of bringing. Now, I suspect even when we know was with the team on the road, we saw pictures of him, but the question becomes, does he, again, because he's waiver exempt, go and spend some significant time with the Moose to get his game back? Because he won't have played hockey for months. And so you need to get him to get that conditioning up. And so to me, he's going to be with the Moose anyway. So even with Ville Heinola, it's going to be a while still before that happens. And again, like I said, it really depends on what happens, boys. But I mean, I don't see the Jets making any significant moves. It's not really their MO to be making moves in November and December. This is a team that
especially when you've got points in 8 of your last 9 games, right, Dave?
Yeah.
So I think, sorry, I'll go back to you here, but I think you're right. Like Heinola, the fact that Heinola, when is he expected back? Like the first week of December, or is it a little bit later? Probably a little bit later, right? Probably more like late December.
I wouldn't expect him in a Winnipeg Jets uniform.
No,
not until 2024.
Okay, so maybe I was a little bit, happy there.
Well, no, Ezzy, I think you're right. I just think it's just he'll probably be wearing a Moose jersey when he comes back.
Sure, you're right. And two, we'll get into, a lot of people are talking about, and I got to give Dave M credit. A lot of people are talking about Declan Chisholm possibly getting a Moose conditioning stint. We'll get into that maybe a little bit later, or maybe on the post game show with Joe Pascucci. But I do think that is an option. And it's 2 weeks max, right? If I'm not mistaken, or 2 weeks minimum, Dave.
Yeah.
So I do think that's an option. But I want to go back to you. But I do think that's a good point that you make. The Jets are playing well, 1, and then 2, Heinola is going to be back in, let's say, a month or 6 weeks or whatever it is. And so do you really want to make a trade knowing that, Heinola could, after playing for the Moose, go into your top 6? So I do think that's something most likely, Dave, that's going to be, on Chevy's radar closer to the trade deadline.
Yeah, no, I agree, Ezzy. I think you'll see what this team is, but again, if this team can get Connor Hellebuck the way he's expecting to, you expect Connor Hellebuck to play, and Laurent Brossoit, if you can get the two of them playing up and their 5-on-5 play. I mean, look, 13 games isn't a mirage, right? The season started 1 month ago today. And so for a month, this team has been playing pretty consistent hockey. And so to me, again, this has been again, are they the Vegas Golden Knights? No, they're not the Vegas Golden Knights, but they are in that upper tier right now of NHL clubs. And you don't, as Drew just touched on, you acquiring points the way they have, putting it in the standings bank is allowing you to kind of look ahead for sure. But I just think from a Jets perspective, it's just, I mean, I know teams are making moves. The Leafs have done some things. The Wild have done some things, but it's just not really in the Jets DNA to be doing that, especially, like I said, when you've got Heinola coming back. And look, if there's a guy who's available, who's a top pairing right guy, Drew, are you willing to make that move? Yeah, of course you're willing to make that move. I mean, is it going to cost you draft picks and assets. It will, of course, cost you draft picks and assets. Are there certain ones you're not willing to trade, like Nikita Chibrikov or Brad Lambert, Rutger McGroarty, Colby Barlow, who I believe is right now is dealing with an injury. He's day-to-day, I believe I saw yesterday. So, no, I mean, there's certain players that I think are untouchable right now on this roster. But, I mean, I think
come on, Dave. Rutger's untouchable, I would say.
I had him in my list. I said Rutger, Colby, Brad Lambert, and Nikita Chibrikov. Those are the four from a forward.
Well, I don't know. Is Chibrikov? Are we prepared to say Chibrikov? I mean, like
he's pretty good.
No. I'm not. That's not what I was saying. I think he is very good. But I'm just saying, I mean, it depends what we're talking about, right? Because we talked about Ekholm. Like Ekholm's a top pairing defenseman. And I think that's probably, if you're talking about a top pairing guy, then you're going to have to give up a really good prospect.
Yeah.
But again, it depends. Like Brad Lambert, to me, there's a difference between me liking a player and a player being very good and the Jets actually trading him. Because I do agree with you, Dave. Like, you don't want to be trading Rutger McGroarty or Brad Lambert or Colby Barlow. They just drafted him 3-4 months ago. But I mean, it depends depends, I guess, if Chevy is going to go for the big game hunting, prior to the trade deadline. Then, I mean, let's see. But I agree with you. I don't think any of those players are being traded anytime soon. And if one is traded, Dave, it will have to be for an impact defenseman, like a guy who can play with Josh Morrissey on the top line, on the top pair.
No, and let me get this in quick.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Always had to get in a Minuk Moose Minute. Had to squeeze it in. We had a little Moose talk. Of course, it was
the guy who's getting a Minuk Moose Minute in before his bar mitzvah.
Yeah, the guy who's leaving. I'm not sure that's approved by the producers of this show.
I understand it's definitely out of. But I saw some calls from the crowd, and we're a populist show, so we wanted to give the people what they wanted. The people wanted a Minuk Moose Minute. They heard it calling. They called for it. I gave them what they wanted. But
it's just quickly, Dave, Drew, I have access to the chat as well. I didn't see anybody calling for it.
Yeah, really? Okay, hold on a second. One second.
It's fine. Just talk. You're going to be late for wherever the hell you're going.
Okay. Anyways, no, just quickly, I wanted to get in a couple of things. First of all, if you want to go to the Moose game on Monday, 10:30 start, school day game, we have 4 tickets in the IC zone. So send me an email. We'll hook you up with that. Some big news that I broke yesterday was
they gave us tickets so innocent people can be screamed at by 7,000 kids for 2.5 hours on a midday morning.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. That is absolutely the case. But anyways, look, Philip Smith, look at us. People are loving the Minuk Moose Minute. Drew, the proof is in the comments.
Anyway, you pay Fart Trap to say that.
Of course. And Philip Smithson and Comet and Bailey.
Go. Start talking.
Frosty wants to know if there's any Danny Zhilkin news. He should check our YouTube channel. I did an interview with Danny Zhilkin yesterday morning on for our YouTube channel. But just quickly, we had some breaking news yesterday that Jimmy Olney, not necessarily done for the season, but he is going to need surgery, MCL, ACL. He had sustained an injury last game against Rockford on Sunday. So unfortunately, the Moose captain, who had something similar happen previously, is going to have to deal with that. So that's unfortunate news. And just want to give a shout out to the Moose because they were at Silo Mission on Wednesday and of course, helping out with the community. And I talked to them and you can see the impact it has on the players, both young and old. Jeffrey VL I talked to and Danny Zhilkin. So that's my Minuk Moose Minute. If you want tickets to the Moose game on Monday, we will have them for you. And Dave at illegalcurve.com or IC Dave, slide into my DMs. And with that, I bid you all adieu. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
On the last show, I know, right? Slow mission,
but I talked to
you. Hey,
there he goes. He's gone. He can't.
I'm back. The point I was
Minuk Moose Minute should be fresh Moose news. I already broke the Salome mission.
I agree with you.
Anything, but
I agree with you, Ezra. But let me make one quick point. The point I'm making is that I spoke to Danny Zhilkin and Jeffrey VL about going to Silo Mission, and so that was fresh because that happened on Friday and that's on our YouTube channel. So if people want to hear from players and the impact working on the community or the impact of losing Jimmy Olney or any other Moose related news, of course, illegalcurve.com is your source, as is our YouTube channel.
Yeah, have a good lunch with Axel Janssen Fjallby, Dave.
Bye,
Bye, Dave. See you later.
See you guys.
There he goes. He's done for the day. Mic drop. Dave Minuk leaving on a high point this morning.
I thought he would never leave, Drew.
I know. Finally, we get rid of the dead weight. My God, he's back again. We get rid of the dead weight, and then Mindell and Ginsburg can take it on from here. Ezzy, we'll talk more about the Jets and the Stars with Mike Heika, who's covered the Dallas Stars for years. Good friend of ours. He's going to join us at the bottom of the hour.
He's in Winnipeg too.
Oh, he is in Winnipeg. Great. So
Yes,
that's
yeah.
perfect. Nice to. It's always
I
always great
invited
to
him
hear.
over, but he declined.
Yeah, well, he heard there's going to be a house party at your house later on tonight, and maybe he'll show up for the post
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
festivities. We'll
Well,
see
Spence,
about that.
he's bringing the hot tub from Sage Creek, so we're going to put the hot tub in the backyard. We might even do an outdoor post-game show this afternoon.
I
Slash
see
tonight.
I see no reason why that's not an excellent idea that you should definitely embrace and move forward with. Did you watch the end of Did you see any of the Oilers Sharks game, Ez?
I did. I didn't watch it live.
Okay.
I did see someone posted the Oilers skating off the ice to like really depressing music, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like, I also saw Ryan Whitney go off because he used to play for the Oilers, and he said that if the Oilers lose to the Sharks, he wasn't going to be an Oilers fan anymore. But no, I didn't see. I saw some of the highlights.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, if this isn't rock bottom for the Oilers losing to the Sharks, who've only won 2 games all year long, I don't know what rock bottom is, Drew.
It's got to be rock bottom. Am I alone in thinking that the Oilers are still going to be they're still likely going to be a playoff team? I mean, I still think I see them bouncing back.
Really?
You don't think they bounce back from this? I mean,
okay. Well, speaking of watching highlights, did you see the goal that Jack Campbell let in for Bakersfield?
I did see that goal, and it was. I mean, I feel bad. I mean,
I'm not going to make fun of that because I feel bad for Jack Campbell. I really do. That's
right.
I'm sorry. I mean, the guy is struggling big time. He is an NHL goalie. I think he's more likely a backup at this stage of his career. Like, I think Jack Campbell could be a backup on an NHL team. I just don't know if he can.
If
give
he's
a team
making
50
$1 million.
games.
Well, how does Ken Holland get a pass on all this? They're talking about making a coaching change and everything else. And I'm thinking, Ken Holland is the one responsible for this disaster. He's the one who signed Campbell. I mean, he panicked and signed him when nobody thought that Jack Campbell was worth, a 5-year contract and $5 million a year. I mean, I don't for the life of me understand, how he is sort of skating underneath the radar there. And maybe he isn't. Admittedly, I'm not, I'm paying far more attention to what's happening here in our backyard. But the fact that he's still got a job to me is a surprising turn of events. Because he's
sure. I would agree with that, but I would also argue that the problems on the Oilers go much, much deeper than the goaltending. They go much, much deeper than the defense. I think when Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl aren't scoring 2 or 3 points each a night, you see really that this Oilers team is not very good, right? Like, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had a career year last year, 100 points, 101 points or whatever. Like, Evander Kane, he's been a pretty good fit. He's not exactly, ripping it up this year, but like, they've got some other players. But, Zach Hyman, I would throw in there as a really good player. But obviously, Darnell Nurse has not lived up to his contract. And right. I don't think Nurse, I think Nurse is a fine defenseman. I just don't think he's a number 1 defenseman. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. He's not worth what is he making, $9 million a year? And Evan Bouchard has turned into a really good defenseman. But I just think this Oilers team is just not as good as people thought they were, clearly, right? Like, a lot of people were picking the Oilers to win the cup at the beginning of the year. And I was thinking to myself, like, I would say the Oilers are a playoff team. This is before they obviously, went 2-10 or whatever they are right now. Yeah. But I mean, you're right though, Drew. I mean, Ken Holland does have to bear some responsibility for this. And, the fact that you've got Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, the 2 best players in the world, I think something has to give. And I don't know. I have not watched the Oilers enough this year to know if Jay Woodcroft should lose his job. But they either have to make a significant trade or they have to change the coach here, because
there's never going to be a significant trade. We just heard about the Minnesota Wild having to spend 6 weeks to trade for Zach Bogosian for a 7th round pick.
Well, and you know very well, Drew, why a huge part of that is because of their cap hell, right?
Course.
Like, how much money do Parise and Suter still take up on that cap? I think
on
it's
the Minnesota Wild cap, you're saying?
Isn't it like $10 million or something like that they're on their cap for those 2 contracts? It's significant, right? So the Wild don't have a lot of cap space. Speaking of the cap space, the Dallas Stars don't have a lot of cap space either. So there's a lot of teams that are having those types of issues. But you're right.
14 million. It's 14 million this year and next year. That Suter and Parise keep.
And that's cap space. That's not actual money. That's the cap space that it takes up. So that's a lot of cap space.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
so, I mean, those contracts have come back to bite the Wild. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about 1 million or 2 million or what would it be in Blake Wheeler's case? I guess it would be $4 million that counts against the cap, right? Like that, you can manage that a lot easier. But when you're talking about 15 million,
yeah,
I mean,
Wheeler's
that's absurd.
Wheeler's 2.75 this year.
There you go.
Next
So
year.
I mean,
So
but that's not a big deal. I mean, that's one average player's salary, right? Like that's doable. But you're right. I mean, look at we've turned this into an Edmonton Oilers hockey show, but I mean, I think that look at McDavid and Draisaitl are not going anywhere. I mean, you're not trading Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I don't think. But like, what are you doing there? Because I don't agree with you, by the way, Drew. I don't think they're going to be able to recover from this. I think they're going to start winning hockey games, but they're going to have to basically play 700 hockey or better to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, but you look, and I very well could be wrong. It certainly would not be the first time. I don't know. I think their shooting percentage is going to increase, and if they can start getting some degree of goaltending, from Stuart Skinner at this point in time, then I could see them scratching and crawling their way back into a playoff spot by the end of the season. I could see that. Now, will they use up so much energy getting to that position that it becomes an impossibility to succeed come playoff time? Well, I have time for that argument as well. But I just don't think that it's necessarily over and done with.
No, it's not. And the reason why, no, I agree with you on that. It's not over because as long as you've got Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, everybody knows the star power that they've got there. I mean, there's always a chance, but like they're already 8 points behind the Blues for the last wild card spot. So at some point in the season, you're going to have to go on a big run. Like we're not talking about winning 2 or 3 games in a row. We're talking about winning 6, 7, 8 games in a row. I mean, we talk about it every year, but if you're more than 3 or 4 points out of the wild card spot by American Thanksgiving, which, as you know, is November 23rd, it's coming up in less than 2 weeks. I mean, it's going to be, let's just say, Drew, that it's not an uphill battle. It's like you're trying to climb Mount Kilimanjaro when you're in my shape.
And you're saying and as he does not recommend anyone does that.
What I'm saying is I wouldn't get very far.
There you go. Fair enough. When we come back, Mike Heika joins us for the Dallas Stars perspective ahead of this afternoon's Jets Stars contest in downtown Winnipeg. Drew Mindell, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Don't go anywhere. Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Boston Pizza harnessed Fanalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Fanalytics.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake. After a great game or great deal, It shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at zappiagroup.com.
Are you dreaming of your very own backyard rink this winter, but dreading the work involved? Well, stress no longer, because the Rink Guys are here to make it happen. The Rink Guys are Winnipeg's first outdoor skating rink installation and rink maintenance service. The Rink Guys offer free site evaluations and different rink construction options. Plus, they use a custom-sized liner to prevent any damage to your lawn. Lighting packages are also available to help illuminate your rink during those long, dark winter nights. To get your rink started today, visit therinkguys.com. Shortly after, the bottom of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on this Saturday morning. Drew Mindell, Ezra Ginsburg with you. We're thrilled to welcome to the program from DallasStars.com. He's covered the Stars for a very long time. Our good friend Mike Heika joins us on the show. Mike, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are things?
I'm great. That dental commercial was spectacular. I just got to say, you guys have a career in theater.
Thank you, Mike. I
do think that's our best commercial. I always tell Drew, we recorded that one, Mike. I don't know how many years ago, Drew, probably 10 years ago, like a long time ago. And I think that was our crown jewel there.
Very conversational.
If you had
the radio business,
if you had to inject truth serum into our audience, I think they would say that for 80% of them at least, they come for the commercials and they stay for the hockey talk.
Right.
But the commercials are the priority for a lot of them. There's no question about it. In any event, Mike, it's great to see you. Welcome to Winnipeg in November. I'm sure at least it's probably better than February, but nonetheless,
it's the first snow I've seen this year.
Yeah.
So.
Mike, when you come back, I think the Stars are back here on the 27th or the 28th. Yeah. So when you come back, there's probably going to be a little bit more snow on the ground, a little bit colder. But you've been to Winnipeg many times, so you know that we're a winter city.
I tell people that. So I'm from Michigan, and I enjoy going out to the winter because then we go back to Dallas and there's no snow. But at least you get a taste of it in the winter.
Yeah, but let me tell you though, we were in Dallas 4 or 5 years ago, and it's pretty nice to be there in November. And it's where did we stay, Drew? I think we stayed in Fort Worth, right?
No, we stayed. Oh gosh, where did we? Not far from where the Cowboys play.
Arlington.
Yeah, we were in Arlington. We were there for the Red River Showdown. We went for Oklahoma, Texas at the Dallas State Fair or the Texas State Fair. Yeah, okay. So that was being from Michigan. Are you a Michigan guy? Are you a Wolverine, Mike?
My family's all Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Right
so
my brother and sister both went there. I went to Central Michigan. I wasn't smart enough to go to Michigan State. So
you're a Chippewa.
I am a Chippewa.
I love Mike, and we're totally on a tangent. I love MAC football. Nothing makes me happier than MACtion on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night. Nothing makes me happier than watching Central Michigan play against Western Michigan. The Chippewas against the Broncos, where there's absolutely nobody in the stands, and the few people that are there just look cold and miserable. Nothing gives me more joy than MACtion on a November night.
When I was growing up and we had the CFL in the summertime on ESPN, I would just watch every CFL game and became a huge CFL fan. So it's weird just what you draw yourself to.
Hey, you know what? If you finish your post-game duties quick enough, you could probably haul down for the West Final, the Bombers and the Lions after the Jets game this afternoon.
Sounds like a deal.
We'll hook you up with the ticket, Mike.
Yeah, well, we brought you on to talk about the Dallas Stars. We were talking about this really throughout the show. You look at these two teams, you look at this game, these are two teams. The Dallas Stars, I think a lot of people had high expectations for them at the beginning of the year. They've met those expectations in terms of their record, certainly. The Jets, people were unsure, but the Jets have been playing some good hockey as of late. I look at these two teams. Forward depth is impressive on both sides. Yeah. The goaltending is impressive on both sides. I give an edge probably to the Stars on the back end and maybe with the forward depth as well. But I see these two teams as being pretty evenly matched, and this should be an entertaining game tonight or this afternoon in downtown Winnipeg.
Yeah, I agree. The interesting part about the Stars is as much as their record is good, their actual analytics of what they've been doing is up and down. It's very inconsistent. And so they're really pushing for a consistent performance. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens in this game. I mean, even last game, they won 5-2, but they were down 2-0. And the first period was a bit of a mess for the first 10 minutes. So they've got a lot of stuff they're still trying to iron out.
Like, I got to ask you about Matt Duchene. He missed I think it was one game. Was it upper body? Yeah, it was just one game. I thought he might have missed more, but I checked this morning, and it was only the one game. And then obviously he comes back, and then he had 3 points against Columbus. You mentioned the Stars beat the Blue Jackets 5-2, and I got to say, and it's not just because you work for the Dallas Stars. Ask Drew, like when Duchene was bought out by the Predators and the Stars signed him to that 1-year, $3 million contract. I'm thinking to myself, like, is that the best, signing of this offseason? Like, I really, there were some okay signings, but like,
right.
For me, a guy a couple years ago had 80 points. And as Drew mentioned, I mean, the Dallas forward depth, I mean, maybe with the exception of the Vegas Golden Knights and a few other teams, if you can have Matt Duchene and Mason Marchment, and I think is Jamie Benn the other player on that line? Tyler Seguin. So, I mean, that's a first line. It's incredible. So a first line on some teams, right? So I guess how would you kind of assess, Matt Duchene's first 10 or 11 games with the Stars? Obviously, he's been putting up some good offensive numbers so far.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, the best value in free agency. I agree. One, because it's only $3 million, and two, because he's an unrestricted free agent after this season. And so where the Stars are right now with how much money they've given to Rope Hintz or to Miro Heiskanen, they kind of have to have those guys. They waited till later in the season to get Max Domi last year, but this clearly is an upgrade on Max Domi. And I like Max Domi, but this guy can do a lot of different things. He loves to have the puck on the stick. He loves to control the pace of play, and he's just starting to fit in. It's interesting. The other part is when you do get bought out, it's a kick in the gut. And I think he felt that. And so he's coming in here with that motivation to kind of prove Nashville wrong and say, look, I think he's 31, 32 years old. And I've got a lot of a game left in me. And I think they are a defensive team and their numbers haven't been great just yet offensively, but I think the potential for him to have a good offensive season this year is right there.
You mentioned, defensive team. They've given up the 4th fewest goals in the league at 30. You mentioned, the offense hasn't necessarily been clicking. They're towards the bottom in terms of goals for. Is that a concern? Does that speak to sort of some of the inconsistency that you mentioned, as it pertains to sort of the finding their game on a consistent level? Is the offense what needs to sort of get going so far this year?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Honestly, the offense would be better if the details of the game were better, I think, because you watch them and they're sloppy at times. And they will go and get outshot, 14-3 one period, then they'll outshoot the other team 14-3 the next period. And so when their details are on, they really are an aggressive offensive team that pushes the puck into the offensive zone and keeps it there. When the details are off, they're chasing back to their goal. And, you mentioned their defense is pretty good. Miro makes it really good. Yeah. But they do have some holes. They're trying to work in Nils Lundqvist, as I pronounce it, Lundqvist, and Thomas Harley. And those are young defensemen. And it takes young defensemen a little while to get better. And so the 3 interesting areas are the power play is terrible right now, 9.1%. It was 25% last year. So they have to fix that to fix the offense. Right. The starts have been terrible. They've been outscored 6-13 in first periods. They outscored teams by like 20 in first periods last year. And then their face-offs, which has been good for 6 years, are below 50%. Excuse me. And so if they don't have the puck, then it's hard to control the puck. And, it just goes to the details of the game. And Pete said yesterday, he goes, face-offs are team stat. And if you're losing face-offs, then that kind of talks about the competitive level of your team. And so, he says it's an area they really have to improve. So all that stuff combined, they have a lot of areas where they can improve. And if they do, I think the goal scoring will go up.
everything you just said, Mike, sounds very familiar to, I'd say, Winnipeg Jets fans, where the details might not be right, but then it sounds like they're getting bailed out by their world-class goaltender, something that
Yes.
Winnipeg fans can totally relate to. So is this been Jake Ottinger's show really by and large significantly?
He is clearly the MVP this year, but what's interesting about Jake is he gives them a chance to find their legs. And so they have these bad starts, but then once they find their legs, they, like I said, they can outshoot a team 14-3 in the second period, and Jake's just sitting back there in a rocking chair. So it comes and goes, and then at the end of games, if they're trying to protect the 1-goal lead, he's been spectacular. He's been their best player all year, but they haven't had to lean on him all the time. It's just been really inconsistent.
And speaking of that, really leads nicely into my next question, Mike. You wrote about this on DallasStars.com. You also wrote about the faceoffs, as you touched on. Matt Duchene, I believe, is leading the Stars in faceoffs, and he's always been a good faceoff guy. But I wanted to ask you about the power play. I'm not sure what's going on in the Central, because I think you've seen where the Blues power play is at. It was at like 3.7%. I'm not sure what it's at right now.
2.9% is where it's at, on worst.
And honestly, I don't want to pick on the St. Louis Blues here, but I mean, and they are in a wild card spot, so they've been actually not bad this year, but I don't even know, like, it's absurd, that your power play could be that low. But Dallas is 29th in the NHL right now, and I'm not sure if you've been following the Jets power play specifically, but they are now 18th in the NHL, but they were around 24th or 25th a couple of weeks ago, and they've turned it around. But in your opinion, like, I know it's hard to necessarily put your finger on one thing, but when you're talking about, Jason Robertson, and you're talking about Rupe Hintz, Tyler Seguin, Miro Heiskanen, I mean, the talent on Matt Duchene, I mean, there's a lot of talent. So what is really the big issue with the power play? Because it seems to me like that's really surprising that they're, bottom 5 in the league right now.
Yeah, I think it's in their head. I really do. The first unit should be spectacular. It was last year. It's the exact same unit. So it's Heiskanen with Pavelski, Robertson, Jamie Benn, and Rupe Hintz. And so, I mean, that's one of the big reasons they were 25% last year. I think they were 5th in the league. And then the second unit has been improved with Duchene, and then Dadonov was added last year. And then Wyatt Johnston, I think, has been very good. They're still looking for a second quarterback. Nils Lundqvist started. Now they're kind of making Heiskanen take all 2 minutes because they are, panicking a little bit. But they have the personnel. But I do think it's in their head where they're like, oh, no, we didn't score. Now we got to go and try even harder. We got to. And they haven't relaxed. And I think that's a big thing. I think, the first unit, especially when it's flowing, Pavelski with the tips, Jamie Benn with the rebounds, it just kind of happens. The puck gets to the net, good things happen. Right now, the puck's not getting to the net as much as it should, and I do think they're panicking in their breakouts. And the other thing is, I think other teams have seen this group of 5, and they kind of know what this group of 5 is going to do as they try and enter the zone. And so they look for pressure points and they try and break things up. And Miro can't do it all. And so I think sometimes he tries a little too hard, but I think the potential is there for them to get that fixed. And, maybe not 25 by the end of the season, but they're going to be at 20%.
Well, and it's very early, right? Like it's hard to see the Stars staying in 29th. Like you said, I don't know if they turn it around and they get to the top 5, but to your point, I just think that, if there's one team that has surprised me, St. Louis, I get it. I mean, St. Louis, they've lost Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, but like you said, the Stars power play is very similar to last year. So
top 5 is the same.
Yeah. And then obviously they're hoping it starts this afternoon versus the Jets. Jets fans might disagree a little bit, but I think it's not going to be 29th for very much longer.
Yeah, they can wait till Minnesota tomorrow.
There you go. Mike Heika is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Mike covers the Dallas Stars for DallasStars.com. Mike, we were talking about the defense, and the top 3, I would say, for the Stars are fairly well known. Suter, Heiskanen, and Lindell. Those are the guys. Ryan Suter, everyone knows him. His lengthy career obviously winding down, but he seems like he's sort of found the fountain of youth a little bit so far this year. Miro Heiskanen, an all-everything defenseman on the back end. The other 3 defensemen, the Thomas Harleys, the Lundqvist, the Hackenpahs, how do they complement the top 3? I mean, especially a guy like Thomas Harley, who, really, spent most of the year last year at the AHL, really came on during the playoffs. I think he played 19 games for the Stars in the playoffs and has been a regular this year. How are those sort of, how are Harley in particular, how is he sort of growing into the role as an NHL regular now?
He might be the best news on the back end. Last year, he got into this mix where he got into the bubble actually at whatever 19 and stayed up there and actually played one playoff game up in Edmonton when the Stars went to the final. And I think that really helped him. But then he came in and it got into his head. You know, he's a young defenseman. He's trying to play in the NHL. I think it just got to be too much. So when they sent him to the AHL last year, they actually had a plan to try and keep him there. And then the entire back end was pretty much healthy all year. So that allowed them to keep him in the minors for 60 games, which he said was the best thing in the world for him, because that coming up and going back, coming up and going back, it messes with your head when you're a young defenseman. And so he said, he got to settle in. He got to just work on his defense. They didn't even have him on the power play last year, I don't think. It was mostly penalty kill and playing defensive hockey, and that helped his game. And then when he did come up, he was great. He was really a very good defenseman in the playoffs in high-pressure situations last year. So I think the opportunity, I think he's 21 now, the opportunity is there for him to be their second-best defenseman. I know Essa is really good and has played very well. I know Suter, eats up 19 minutes a night. But as we look forward, I think Thomas Harley is, because a lot of fans will look at that group of defense and say, we need something else. We need something more. And I think Thomas Harley is something more. And so it's just a process of getting him there and letting him play the whole season. But I've actually been impressed with him in the first 11, 12 games. He's been very solid. Nils is a little bit of a because he's a skilled defenseman. He's smaller. I think he gets targeted a little bit more because, Harley's a big, strong guy. They're not going to go after him. Nils, they go after him a little bit. And so I think that hurts him a little bit. But Harley, I really do think that he's where they hope to improve the defense in the next year or two.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about a couple players with the Texas Stars. I think I know who I'm going to ask you about, because we follow the AHL maybe not as closely. Dave Minuk does follow the Moose more closely than Drew and I, but Texas, of course, is a rival of the Manitoba Moose, and Logan Stankoven and Maverick Bourque, they're high draft picks. Stankoven was a second rounder and Bourque was a late first rounder, but both those guys were over a point a game. And then I follow the Stars, of course, because they're in the Jets division. And right. I know there were some fans that were hoping one of those guys would be called up. And I'm not sure if that was a cap issue, because I read that there might not be enough cap space. But I mean, I guess, how exciting is that for Stars fans to know, with all this forward depth that the Dallas Stars currently have, and then you've got guys like Logan Stankoven and Maverick Bourque, who are probably, a year or less away from, making that jump to the NHL.
Yeah, the Stankoven one, obviously, because of his numbers in junior hockey, really opened the eyes of a lot of fans. And then he's good. I mean, I like watching him. I go up to Traverse City every year for the junior tournament there, and he's been really dynamic. In fact, you can argue that last year he was better than Wyatt Johnston, but because of the situation with Johnston, they decided to bring him in and let Logan stay out in Kamloops. So it's a little bit of a situation that they're looking at now. And it's funny because what happened with Thomas Harley, I think they're looking at Bourque and Stankoven as saying, shouldn't we just leave them down there as much as we can? And they really are. Their numbers are through the roof. And I do think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to bring one up at some point in time. But you're right. The cap situation is difficult. If they were to suffer some injuries that were longer term, Radek Fox was out 5 games, and then Duchesne was out 1 game. That's why they had to go with the 11-7 format for 1 game. And that's when the fans are like, well, why aren't we calling up Logan? And they're like, well, they could have worked it around, I think, and tried to make it work. But they're just like, 1, we can deal with this for 1 game. And 2, let's let them sit down there and let's let them continue to have success in the AHL. Bourque is interesting because this is his 2nd year in the AHL. And so I think they think, and this is me just putting words in their mouth, but that's what I do. I think they think that Bourque is closer to being ready for the NHL than Logan is. So we'll see. And a lot is going to depend on how they do in the coming month or so, and what kind of injuries they have. But a lot of times when they make those decisions, it's based on how the player is playing right now. So if they get an injury and it's a skilled player, then they'll look and they'll say, okay, we think that Bourque is more ready than Stankoven is, or we think Stankoven's more ready than Bourque is. I can't see them both coming up at any point in time. But I will say this, and I'm going on about this, but I honestly think that fans look around and they see Patrick Kane, or they, see a tempting free agent out there and say, why don't we go get that guy? And I'm like, you don't need him. You've got these two guys. Concentrate on maybe getting a defenseman at the trade deadline, but your forward depth is incredible right now. When you look at what Wyatt did last year, and you look at these two guys, and you look at, the fact that Robertson's only, 24, you really have a great group of forwards, 25 and under, and you're in a good place.
Mike, last question for you, then we'll let you go. You mentioned just Wyatt Johnston, and a tremendous year last year. Former
He's a really good player.
Pick, 2021 first round. He's a terrific
good
player. 40 points last year. Played all 19 games in the playoffs last year. So he's a fixture, no question about it, for the Dallas Stars moving forward. What does he want to sort of bring to his game or add to his game as he's now in his second full year at the NHL level?
He's a really smart player, and I always say this, we have our own little podcast. I say smart players get smarter because they know how to process the information they're getting. He lives with Joe Pavelski. He lived with him last year. He's living with him now. So that means he's driving to the rink with him every day. He's talking after games with him every day. And I just think that's just a wonderful opportunity for a young player. He's 20 years old. And, so Joe might be the smartest player, on this team, and maybe one of the smartest in the league. And so Wyatt's like that. So Wyatt gets us information. He's a very quiet guy. And so he processes the information. And so I think he looks around and says, I can do this better. I mean, clearly, young players, your faceoffs have to be better. He's a center. He's, second line center, basically. So he gets a lot of opportunities. And so, that's one thing he can be better at. Two, can he be better on the power play? That second unit needs a little more leadership. Could he actually step up and start being the guy who is driving the second unit? Duchesne's on there now, so that's going to be a big part of it too. But things like that. And then three, defensively, I think he's actually been much better. He's not a big guy, but he doesn't back away from battles. He goes in and wins one-on-one battles. And I think that's an area that he's already improved on.
Mike Heika covers the Dallas Stars for DallasStars.com, one of our longtime favorite guests here on the program. Mike, enjoy this afternoon's contest. Let's go Chippewas. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, Mike.
We'll talk to you soon. Always great to catch up with Mike Heika.
Nobody knows that, and you know this.
Yeah.
Nobody knows the Dallas Stars like Mike, and that's why we always have him on. We try to always have him on when the Jets are playing the Stars. Obviously, the Stars and the Jets play a lot in the Central Division against each other, but and he's just a great guy. We've got to know him, and just an awesome dude.
I can't get over the parallels between the Stars and the Jets, especially when it comes to the forward depth.
It's going to be a battle this afternoon.
Like, on the back end.
These are the types of team. Like, these teams are going to be battling for first, second, third in the Central, right? Like, even though I put the Avalanche as the best team, I don't think the Avalanche are necessarily going to be like 10 points ahead of these teams by the time the season's over. Like, I think it's a three-headed monster at the top of the Central. I really do. I think it's the Jets, Stars, and the Avalanche. And like I said, I still think the Avalanche and the Stars, I would give them an edge over the Jets, but it's a smaller edge than maybe in years past. But you throw in Matt Duchene.
I just don't. I don't think the Avalanche don't have the same forward depth that they've had in years past, especially without Gabe Landeskog. We know he's not going to be playing this season. Their defense is better than both the Jets defense and the Stars defense. I mean, I don't need to go.
I would
through
agree
the
with
names,
that. Yeah,
but I don't think
you could just. I mean, Cale Makar. I mean, that's all you.
That's all you need to say.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. Cale Makar is all you need to say on that one.
Yeah.
I don't think that the Avalanche are they're still a fantastic hockey team. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think their forward depth isn't what it once was.
I would agree with that.
I think they're still the best team in the Central, like you said. So I agree with you there. But the gap between the Stars, the gap between the Stars and the Avalanche is shrinking.
Yes, and that's why these are going to be such great games. Like, these are going to be absolute battles, because I mean, it's not just about today's game. The Jets and the Stars know that the other team, the opposite team, is going to be like their impediment to winning the Central Division and getting to the second round. I mean, this could be a potential first round playoff matchup. That's the way I'm looking at it.
In a 2-3 matchup in the Central Division, I don't think anybody would blink an eye if that turned out to be the case. You're
and the Jets 2.0 haven't played the Stars in the first round.
No,
or at all.
Or
if I'm
playoffs.
not
They haven't played it in the playoffs at all. You're right.
Yeah.
So
series that would be, Drew.
Yeah, well, we still got about another
Yeah, we got some time.
70 or so playoff games or regular season games before
Yeah.
we have to shift our focus
We
to
have a
that.
lot of tough duck toques to give away between
There you
now and
go.
the playoffs.
And you will give away a tough duck toque later on this evening on the Illegal Curve post-game
Might
show.
have to give Joe Pascucci one for bailing me out here.
There you go. You alongside Joe Pascucci around 4:30 this afternoon after the Jets and the Stars, and fortunately before the Bombers and the Lions. So simply just keep it locked to Illegal Curve. If you're driving from the arena to the stadium, just make sure you pull up our post-game show in your car, pull it up on your YouTube channel, and you can listen to the dulcet tones of Mr. Ginsburg and Mr. Pascucci talking about everything that happens this afternoon when the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets do battle in downtown Winnipeg.
And if you're going to be indulging in a Legal Curve Farmery light beer, available online and at 2 Donald, the Farmery retail location. So if you are going to be indulging in a few icy beers, make sure you do so responsibly, right? Like take a cab, take the bus, whatever. Don't drink and drive. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, especially, if the Jets win, I mean, it's going to be a big party in the city, but I mean, there's going to be a lot of, drinks flowing this afternoon and tonight. So just, drink responsibly. From the most responsible member of the Legal Curve, just listen to me.
Yes, and on those lines, and I want to be done by 11 o'clock so that people, the Remembrance Day ceremonies begin, I think, sharp at 11. So I want to be done in the next minute or so. A big thank you to everybody for joining us this morning. In case you missed any of the interviews with Ted Wyman or with Mike Heika, they're available on the YouTube channel. They're available on our podcast edition of this show. So be sure to subscribe here, there, and everywhere. Big thanks to all the sponsors who make this show, the post-game show, and the website a possibility. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rollies, Transfer the Rink Guys, and of course, Farmery Beer, home of Illegal Curve Lager, as he's got it up there on the screen. Reminder, post-game show 4:30 this afternoon. Keep it locked to illegalcurve.com between now and then for your latest Jets and Moose news and audio. Enjoy today, everybody. It's a Super Sports Saturday. As Ezzy mentioned, do so responsibly. Please, a moment of reflection for all those who have served our country and continue to do so. For Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. For Dave Minuk, too, even though he left early. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.